99.99% of the people that buy salvage vehicles are aware that that vehicle may not be titled in every state. Now, many of you may ask, why would anyone buy a salvage vehicle? And the answer is very simply because they can save 40 to 50%. In my district, of course, I represent a very poor rural district. I would say that a large percentage of the people in my district drive these salvage vehicles, and they know that when they buy the salvage vehicles, if they decide to trade those vehicles or sell that vehicle, that it's going to be worth a lot less, but it's all that they can afford. And there's a large industry in South Central Kentucky where people buy these salvage vehicles in states like Florida and Michigan and bring them back. And this creates jobs, and it allows the people that can't afford nicer vehicles to be able to buy good, dependable, late model vehicles. So I really believe, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, that House Floor Amendment 2 is a good compromise to this bill. I appreciate what the sponsor has done by bringing this bill to the floor, but I encourage everyone on the floor to support House Floor Amendment 2. Therefore, I move for adoption of House Floor Amendment 2 if there are no questions.
Motion made and seconded for the adoption of House Floor Amendment 2. Gentleman from Johnson, 97.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the explanation, but this in no way affects the rebuilding of salvage vehicles if they are salvage rebuildable vehicles. This only takes about 3%, a little better than 3% are unrebuildable. I'm sure there's an exception sometimes that the insurance company might make a mistake because they may settle that with a person that may be hurt or think they're hurt or wearing a collar, you know, and kindly say they have a whiplash. They may settle that and total that vehicle to take care of the medical expense, but that person signs it and he knows it. But these vehicles that are unrebuildable are rebuilt. It causes a major problem for the public in Kentucky. It causes a major problem for people, the second and third buyer. Sure, the first buyer may get a disclosure statement, sure. But you know the second and third person is not going to take that disclosure statement and pass it to the next person he sells it to because he's going to get every penny he can and he's not going to tell them anything. We know that. We know that because it happens all the time. But the dealer, if he sells it, and most of the salvage rebuilders have dealer's license, they're supposed to be the experts. And when they sell one of these vehicles, they might as well take it back when somebody calls their hand on it because they're going to lose in court and it may be down the road. They may lose half of the money that they've gotten for it. And it will not cost any job because if they can't buy an unrebuildable title, they'll buy the rebuildables. It will not cost any job, and I argue with anybody and challenge anybody to prove to me that it would lose any jobs. And I would move or ask the body to vote this amendment down.
Gentleman from Hardin, 25, you're recognized for discussion on the motion.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, House, I would like to stand to oppose this amendment for some of the reasons that's already been mentioned. But the gentleman mentions that these cars are better buys for some of them. What the truth is that they produce more profit for those that sell them, not necessarily more savings for the consumer. I guess my question is why would we as a state want to have anything licensed in our state that about 12 or 14 states, if that individual would happen to move there, could not get a title for the vehicle if he happened to move into one of these states. And the list of states is growing every day because this is becoming an increasing problem across the whole United States. And that's why you're seeing more and more states pass this type of legislation. Now, we heard in committee that the Department of Transportation is not equipped to make these designations on the titles with all of the other designations that we have. So, therefore, it's going to create an impact, a physical impact, if this amendment is passed. And then, as it's been said, the second and third owners, in most cases, if you buy a car, when you buy it, you don't see the title. You don't see the title until you've already paid your money out and the title comes back to you in the mail. And by then, you've got a problem. So I would urge the members of this body to defeat the amendment, because it's not something that we want to do in Kentucky. As a former car dealer, I can tell you that I never wanted to sell a vehicle to anybody that somewhere 10 years from now or 7 years from now or 5 years from now was going to come back and tell me that they'd bought a car that they couldn't title somewhere. And I can tell you the car dealers of Kentucky do not want this particular piece of this amendment to pass, because that's what it would do. It's time that we pass this legislation as it's presented, and let's protect our consumers that buy a salvage vehicle or a non-rebuildable vehicle. At least they know when they buy it that it's titleable across the United States. Thank you.
Gentleman from Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Kentucky Automobile Dealers Association supports this bill as it is. And also, you'll find on your desk a letter from the Attorney General, Attorney General Stumbaugh. If you will read that, he supports this for the consumer protection, and two of his people from the Attorney General's office came and testified to that effect in the committee. So I would ask that the body vote this amendment down.
Gentleman from Monroe, 53.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to add that the Kentucky Auto and Truck Recyclers Association supports floor amendment 2, and to follow up on what the gentleman from Hardin said about the Department of Transportation not having the capability to thoroughly examine every vehicle. We have 26,000 employees of the Department of Transportation. Maybe we should encourage the Transportation Secretary to maybe look into this a little bit more. But before we pass a bill like this, without this amendment, Mr. Speaker, I must caution the state or caution the members of this body that we had a very lengthy debate yesterday on the budget, and we talked about putting signs on the state that said we're not open for business, and we complained about our revenue being down because we're not as business friendly as we should be. My district has suffered a lot in the last 10 years because of NAFTA, because of tobacco. And this is a big industry in my district, a viable industry. And every single person that has bought a salvage vehicle in my district knew that they were buying a salvage vehicle. And I'm sure they would rather have gone to a car lot and bought a brand new, nice, shiny vehicle with 0 miles on it, or a nice used vehicle with low mileage on it. But the fact is, they couldn't afford it, Mr. Speaker. They couldn't afford it. And this is a good industry. And I believe that floor amendment 2 is a good compromise to House Bill 459. Therefore, I strongly encourage the members to vote for floor amendment 2.
Gentleman from Garrett, 36, you're recognized for discussion on the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Reluctantly, I will speak on the amendment. I'm going to speak for it. This bill came before the Transportation Committee at least 2 times. We had numerous people there opposing the bill, and most of these cars come out of Florida. Now, Florida has a state law branding these cars because they'd rather do that is to go through and have them fixed up and paying for the body shop fees. Probably, here's what happened in Florida. The automobile industry is so powerful there, the big dealers, that they got it fixed that way so they wouldn't have competition. If that is true. That's the name of the game. That's what we're fighting here right now. Now, the truth of the matter, here in Kentucky, we do have good automobile mechanics and body shop people. These cars are fixed, and they tell the buyer that it was a branded car. Now, it was mentioned about the auctioneer. I'm an auctioneer. All the auctioneer has to do when he sells that car is to notify the buyer, and they record everything they say. This car has a branded title. And if the person still buys it, he's not liable. Now, if you can buy a 2002 Chevrolet for $3,000, it looks as good as the man's down the street that he paid $25,000 for, you feel pretty good about yourself. Some people cannot afford that. This is going to put a lot of people out of business. I can tell you that. I believe they said at least 200 people across the state. It's what some of the people testified to. So the gentleman from Monroe has an excellent amendment. Thank you.
92, you're recognized for discussion on the motion.
The gentleman from Johnson yield to a question.
He will yield.
Yes,
Gentleman from
If this bill passes and I decide to go to Florida and buy me a car or truck that's stamped non-rebuildable, can I bring it back home and rebuild it for my personal use?
Gentleman from Johnson.
If you go to Florida and buy an unrebuildable vehicle and you bring it back, if this bill passes, then that vehicle is unrebuildable. And let me add something else from the person previously. I'm an auctioneer too. And if I sell a vehicle and that person has to come back, I don't care if I tell him beware or what, if he comes back and I don't give him his money back, bye-bye. I won't be auctioneer very long because I'll be out of business. You treat people the way you want to be treated. And if you don't give their money back when you sell them something like that, you're in trouble.
Did you get your answer, sir?
He said, I never got a direct answer, no.
Gentleman from Knott. Gentleman from Knott. You want to ask the question again, or?
The answer is no.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, gentleman from Knott. Excuse me, Knox 86.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to speak on the amendment.
Will you just proceed, sir?
Mr. Speaker, where I live on the border, on Tennessee and Kentucky, we heard in Knox County the other day that a president of one of the major universities went to Tennessee and became the president of UT. While in Tennessee, he went to trade cars. And while he was trading cars in Tennessee, he found out that he had an unrebuildable title. And I say on this House floor, that man didn't have nothing but the best. And if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for every Kentuckian in the state. And I say put the amendment in the bill.
Question.
Gentleman from Johnson, anything else?
No, sir. Let's vote on the amendment.
All right. Gentleman from Knox, would you ask for a roll call? Thank you. Now, more than two people haven't asked for a roll call. All members favoring House Floor Amendment 2 signify by voting aye. Those opposed, nay, and the roll call machine is open for your vote. Does any member wish to change or explain his or her vote? Have all members voted? Clerk will take the roll. There being 41 members voting aye, 44 members voting nay, the motion's lost. Gentleman from Johnson.
Mr. Speaker, if there's no further questions, I've moved passage of House Bill 459.
Well, there seems to be another little comment. Gentleman from Monroe, 53. You're recognized for discussion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be very, very brief. I just encourage the body to vote against this bill.
Are you ready to vote? Clerk, sound the chimes. Question now is on the adoption of House Bill 459 as unamended. All members in favor vote aye. Those opposed, nay, and the roll call machine is open for your vote. Gentleman from Jefferson 46, do you wish to explain your vote, sir? Does any member wish to change or explain his or her vote? Have all members voted? Clerk will take the roll. There being 61 members voting aye, 27 members voting nay, House Bill 459 is adopted. Gentleman from Johnson.
Mr. Speaker, I would move the clincher.
Gentleman